That's good to know. Because so part of this for me is I want to learn to do. So my whole idea of live streaming, I'm pretty new to all this too. Um, well, I don't know how experienced you are, but I'm new to it. I don't know if you are.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I haven't been able to fully connect to my live streaming yet, but I have a D Live account, and I've been playing around with XSplit, which is I think XSplit has a little bit more capabilities than OBS. OBS is super solid at what it does, screen capturing and broadcasting, but
Hmm.
I think XSplit sets up a little like a studio in your on your desktop where you can have multiple cameras connected, and then with just hitting keys on the keyboard you can hop around like a studio.
Okay. Yeah, I'll have to play around with that, or I'd like to get more familiar with some of the software that the autonomy community is kind of generally using. So not only can I try to help out if possible, but learn of these new and cool software.
That's what's running Rich's studio, so he's able to jump from all of his cameras and monitors, and he's got like a book cam. I don't know if you've seen that, but an overhead camera pointing down at a book where you can kind of like read along.
Oh yeah, the document cam. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm like right now it looks like if I'm going to start talking on Zoom that I want to double click my face, which would be really hard to remember in a long interview.
hmm
But I wonder if there's settings, that I'm just not aware of where it would automatically kind of go back and forth between whoever's speaking.
right. Yeah, I've had to do that manually. It's a pain. But before we jump into that, give me a little bit of your background. I know you have video editing experience, but like, what do you use streaming for, and like, what are some of your goals?
Yeah. Well, so for me, the streaming is not necessarily about trying to create a large live viewing audience. That wasn't the initial goal anyway. So initially, for me, I was doing some interviews a couple years back for the My Liberty Lifestyle podcast, and I had people on, and we would do this, and we'd get on, and I'd set up all the recording to make sure I'm recording his face, and then we'd make sure he's doing it on his side. And there's a lot of logistical issues that sometimes somebody's recording didn't work properly, the audio didn't come through the way you thought it was going to, or sometimes
Always something.
yeah, interviewing with somebody that doesn't know how to record on their side, which is
Yeah.
perfectly understandable. I mean, especially if they're not of this, age or whatever, they're of an older generation. So it's really the intention is to get to the point where I can do something like this, like we're doing live, and then be done with it when I walk away. So
Right.
not have to do any post production. So it's laziness. Ultimately, it's a form of me having a hard time keeping up with all the work because all of us are overwhelmed and have way too much to do all the time, right?
Yeah.
But we want to still do stuff like this, or I do anyway. So to be able to do it live and then walk away, and maybe you have to brush up a couple things, or sometimes you have a local copy that you do need to add something in, or
Clip the ends.
yeah.
Yeah. If it's just that. And
But for my personal website, something more professional, I would want to pre-record it, and we'd have better cameras and all that stuff and the proper lighting, and I would. But for me, for my personal website, it's me just putting my opinion out there, really, and what I think about things. And so it can be a little shaky for these first getting started for a while I'm kind of learning the equipment.
yeah.
And, I don't have a ton of money invested in this whole setup. Like I'm using equipment from 5 years back when I first started trying to get into this stuff. And my mic and my cameras are still the same.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't have a ton of money to be dumping into equipment either.
Yeah.
So it's a minimal. I'm trying to do like a minimal setup where I can jump on, hopefully eventually have somebody on, and we'll do a back and forth interview, and then kind of sit down and start working on the next thing, because that's how I like to get in the flow. I don't want to get bogged down with like all this post production time.
Yeah.
Um,
And we're now at a time where this is attainable. Like, we can do this on a budget, on not the most top of the line equipment, and yeah, hopefully like get into a flow where yeah, we just can produce a quality product without a lot of time investment.
Absolutely. And I think people's standards are also maybe not as high as they were like post, just like right after post TV days.
Yeah.
Something a little shaky or the video's not fully coming through that great would be kind of unacceptable. But now, I mean, people run businesses on their cell phones, and the audio quality doesn't have to be as great as it used to be.
Right,
Surprising.
we can thank Instagram stories for lowering the bar.
Exactly. And I'd like to learn more about where you're at with things too. I don't know, like if you want to, what's your goal and intention of live streaming or learning, about this stuff?
Yeah. Well, I because of my digital marketing background, um, I do Facebook video ads, and so I kind of got into this. I needed to learn about video editing just to clean up my short little clips that I was collecting. I get stock footage um, and instead of just posting it directly, I started manipulating it, shortening it, making it longer. And so just some basic things that I learned to learn some video editing skills. I use Hit Film Express because it was free and available, and it basically can do anything that the larger platforms can do. And it's teaching me like how to do things, and it translates onto all the other software. Uh, Now I'm getting into more complex video editing. I helped a client out with podcasts, and she recorded raw video of her doing her podcast and she sent me the full file, and then I had to go through and clean it up, remove ahs and ums. She would restart throughout it, so I'd have to just clean up all the outtakes, and then add on text to emphasize what she was saying. So that was a good project that pushed me into learning more about that. Text is something still I want to like get better at. I really liked you did the testimonial video, right? I really liked your text for each person's name with the live animation behind the banner. I thought that was really cool. I'd love to learn that maybe in another session with you. So that all pushed me into learning some basic video skills, and then just helping Rich out. I mean, there's always something going wrong, so you got to like figure it out and learn it. And my goals for live streaming, I just got into my office about a month ago. We built a barn, and now I have my own office that's out of the house. And so
Nice.
because I got Joseph Ford that lives next door. So one of my main ideas for streaming is just like getting the guys together, pointing cameras at us, and having some good like philosophical discussions, and just being able to capture that in long form, in raw conversation without it needing to be cleaned up. Just putting it out there. And then so far my only idea for like a streaming channel is I DJ as well, and so I have a ton of live recording mixes on my computer, and so I thought I would just kind of like play that throughout the day in between some one-on-one philosophy.
Oh yeah.
So so far that's my angle of like what kind of channel to create, and
Awesome.
I'm excited to develop that and yeah, if I can get like a schedule down where I have people coming to visit me and we have some long form discussions, that'd be awesome.
Nice. That sounds like a great skill set to go down the path that you're going down, especially like the DJ stuff, like adds right into that, I'm sure.
Yeah,
Even
that's how I got into audio editing, was because I had to figure out how to get my mixes out there, and learn audio mixing through my whole 20s with SoundForge. And yeah, video kind of came out of that.
Now your camera looks really good. Do you have a capture card with like a digital camera, or are you using like a USB camera?
Yeah, USB camera.
Oh wow. See, I think I need to play with my settings because it's either the stream rate or the compression or something, but you look really good. And I'm just like choppy and not looking so great. I don't know what that is.
Yeah. I got a 1080 Logitech, like
Yeah,
50.
that's what I have. I have a couple of those. And sometimes they look great and then other times not so much. It could be my lighting. And so again, I'm new to this. I'm not an expert to say right up front, like
Yeah.
all the stuff that I've learned along the way has been through things like this or just asking people. One of the ways that I learned how to do kind of the overlay stuff was actually watching, I don't know if you're familiar with Michael Tessarion. He had a series called the Path of the Fool series. And the visuals on the series were just like amazing. And I didn't understand how they were doing it, how they were making certain things going in and out on the screen. So I actually, watched the credits and I found out the guy that was doing it. He's on Facebook and friend requested him and just messaged him and asked him straight up, like, how did you do that? And he just told me, he's like, I did this, here's the software, check it out. I went and bought the software and I've been using it ever since. And
Cool.
that's one example of all, in autonomy, obviously the word autodidactic, and I'm sure you're familiar. I guess I'm kind of the definition. I love to learn things myself, which ultimately, I guess that's really the only way we can learn is ourselves. But, other people can provide their input.
Yeah.
But
And for us to have this platform and community to where we're kind of all doing this same thing and then we record it and are able to share it with others, it's a pretty, hyper learning environment.
yeah, I feel that way already, and I haven't even started.
Yeah.
So let's jump in then. I'll try to share my screen, but I am not sure how to do that, to be honest with you.
On Zoom, on the bottom,
Okay.
and then you can pick either a window or a screen.
Okay. All right. So that's Zoom. Let's get that out of there. Let me know when you're seeing the screen if I'm doing it right. You should be seeing some slides.
Yeah.
Do you see that? Okay. So I'm going to try to answer a few of the questions that you've presented and then Chris threw out in Discord. And let's see, this camera's on you instead of me while talking. That's kind of weird. That's cool. That's a little like split. That way we can see both of our reactions. And again, I'm cheating and using this conversation with you to pretend it's sort of a live interview and how that would look.
Yeah.
All right. So, like Chris was saying, he wanted to know how to throw these little slides on there, and it's nothing brilliant or magnificent. And some people out there are like, okay, that's a really simple place to start.
Yeah.
But this is going to be a very simple video.
Yeah.
So the first thing I noticed is these videos could use a little bit of a thing underneath here, a banner, a title screen, right?
Yeah.
And then also obviously some of the folks who've been doing videos on autonomy already did that. Clearly, it's not that.
Would you call it an overlay? Is that what an overlay is?
Okay, yeah. So the disclaimer again, I'm not industry expert, so I don't use the proper terminology with any of this stuff, but I call it a title slide or an overlay. Yeah. And I just kind of made this one. Like you can see, these are all moving parts.
Yeah.
So I just kind of cheated and I made one and then touched that up. And so this interview with you two, you can just start there. But then
Cool.
my wife saw this slide and said, you should use that graphic. And I said, okay, that's not too hard.
Nice.
And this is all pieced together again. These are all individual pieces.
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll come back to this because I wanted to do something live, but and then you export this. That stuff's probably a little bit too in-depth. Okay, and to back out a little bit, this is Inkscape. So this software here is a vector graphics software, but you need some sort of, now people use Photoshop. Photoshop's probably going to be the most popular in what people have out there, potentially already. But I like free. If there's something free and open source, or at least free, and it's not like an abandoned project, which Inkscape is definitely not, I'll use that. And I've gotten to know it over the years. So for me to turn around and stop and start using Photoshop would actually be quite difficult because I know all the little buttons with this software,
Right.
But again, I might start using things like Adobe Creative Cloud and or the Creative Suites uh, software or Inkscape if that's what people in autonomy are more used to, because I want to speak the same language that everybody's already used to and not, you know.
I think everybody's more in your boat where they prefer open source and free versus premium. Like rich would be different, especially if we're all going to be working on the video projects together. It would be beneficial to be able to share the project file. But
Mhm.
outside of that, I think everybody's all about the open source free avenue.
Yeah, and so there's probably other alternatives out there. I've gotten used to Inkscape. You know, check it out. If you have questions on things, it's one of those, like Rich says, like anything that you want to do on it's on YouTube. So as long as you know how to go and look on YouTube and ask them how they're doing it, you know, there's a lot of different ways to do things with this software. So now I'm gonna jump into a new software. So I don't want to jump around too much, but this is basically like the what's the Adobe one, Premiere, or what do they call it? The video editor with
Yeah,
Adobe
Premiere.
Premiere. Okay. This is basically the same thing. I think it has possibly more bells and whistles, but I haven't used Premiere in a while.
Mhm.
So, but the concepts are the same, like you and I were talking about last time we met, was like across these platforms, once you learn how to cut something and slide the other thing over, there might be a different mouse click or something in the new software, but all the technique, as you know, and I'm not trying to tell you something you don't know, but for the people who may watch this, if we do get some kind of a formal production out of this meeting.
Yeah.
So all I did here was go
It's
ahead.
called
Do you have any
Power
questions?
Director. This is called Power Director.
Yeah, this one is called Power Director. It's from Cyberlinks.
Cool.
I think it was like $80, and that's a lifetime purchase. It's just one time. You don't have to like keep paying. That's one thing I really didn't like about Adobe.
Right.
But this you could just buy and then keep updating it, and it comes with like a database of the title slides that you were asking about with the names that come across.
Oh,
So
cool.
a lot of that stuff was pre-built in here, and so we'll cover that. All I did so far was drag and drop your interview with Chris from a while back over into this. I just grabbed the whole thing, dragged and dropped it over. Um, all right, so you can see we're here. We don't have a title slide or an overlay or whatever you want to call it. So in the Inkscape program, we made some back when I was doing the testimonial video. So we have some ready to go here. Just got to pull them up. And let's say we want that one.
So the way I've been doing it is just making a PNG file and dragging that in. I'll
Exactly.
I'll use like even Canva or Spark is an Adobe free like graphic maker. So I would do all that in that and then just bring over with a transparent background.
Exactly. Okay, yeah, that would totally work. And there's, like I said, 100 different ways to do this. And
Yeah,
this part was more for Chris's benefit. I think he was asking,
yeah, for
and
sure.
this
And
is also in the post edit. So this is assuming this is, and so we're kind of jumping around here. I guess we should clarify. This is assuming that this is already recorded. This is not for live streaming.
mhm,
This is something that's pre-recorded that you want to go and throw the slide on afterwards. So in a second, I'm going to jump into OBS and talk about doing it live.
oh, cool.
Um, so then you would just drag that out, obviously, right? And you'd cover the whole thing.
And is the video? I noticed the video has like the black space above and below it. Did you need to do that? That
Okay.
was just the raw recording that you got, so that you could
Yep.
fit an overlay on the bottom.
Good point. That's the raw video. And so if you notice in the testimonial video, there wasn't a lot of that default view like that.
Yeah,
What I did was I kind of zoomed out and touched
right.
them up a little bit. Some looked fine full screen.
Yeah,
Others, they were too far apart. Like Macmillan was like way off to the right. Or sometimes on some of them I just cut Macmillan out. Not that we don't want to see his pretty face, but like yours, it was nice to just have a full screen view, right? And then obviously we wouldn't want, that looks kind of weird, right? That slide. So we found a logo that we can drop in instead. And let's bring this back up to something we can see. Right. So that's just really basic, like adding a graphic.
Now, you had that throughout, right?
Yeah, I had that when there was a full screen on the testimonial. So if you want, I'll just pull that up. I just kind of wanted to show what this looked like just getting started.
Cool.
So then you would obviously spend some time to make that look perfect, right?
Yeah.
And then with these software like this one, it doesn't auto save on you. So, and there's a reason for that. Like as you get into more technical cuts and stuff, like you don't want it to save necessarily all the time in case there is a crash in the software. Anyway, I'm just gonna save this just so like I have it.
Oh, because it might save it and crash every time from that point.
Maybe that's the reasoning. I'm not exactly sure, but it's just something to keep in mind. Like if you walk away for the afternoon,
yeah,
maybe you should save it.
Yeah, it needs to be a manual. I think Chris just learned that painful lesson.
Yeah, I think most of the video editing software is like that for particular reasons that like off the top of my head right now. I'm fried too. I've been like not sleeping. My kids have not been doing that great the last few nights. So we're like, we're in that like tortured mode right now. So I'm just going to pull up that full edit. Now, I did this in kind of a time pressure, trying to get out of town for the weekend. And also, it's not something I do every day, this particular type of project. So normally, what I'm trying to say is normally it would be a lot cleaner. So don't judge me for how messy this is, because normally if I was trying to do something really nice and make it nice and clean, I would have a nice, clean working environment as well.
Well, the testimony video came out super powerful. I was really touched by it. I don't think you could get through it without being inspired.
Yeah, I got a chills a couple times watching it, you know, towards the build up at the end. And when you get the chills yourself, you're like, okay, there's something here that's pretty good. And I'm not doing any of the work. Like you guys did all the work. You know, I just did some end stuff. All the work was done up front by you guys. So,
Sweet.
So let's just keep it simple and go into this Virgil clip right now. All that is that little graphic that comes in. So here's our overlay, right? Or whatever you want to call it, the title slide. And we dropped that in here. And then in OBS, and I'm sure Adobe Premiere has something similar, there's titles. So they call them titles. And I have all these ones in here. Here's, you know, Kurt Bivens. And this is a pre-built graphic, basically, that somebody was able to. Now, I would like to learn how to make these, because one of the issues with this particular graphic is the bubbles are a little quick, and it would be nice to just slow them down, right? And Rich actually even, he said, well, I don't want to be too picky, but I did notice that. And I said, well, I noticed it too, you know, but unfortunately this one, you can't get in and get that fine-tuned. But there are graphics like that in here that are called particles. And the particles have you can go in there and really just like pick them apart. And here's like an example of something you could do you could start out with that, and you could change the colors, you could change the frequency of the bubbles, you could make them move faster or move to the left. Like there is a lot of control.
Cool. And then you can somehow squeeze that, crop that into just a specific space where you want the text.
Essentially it's not as easy as that, because it's not like a button that you push, but essentially you could do that. And so I'm myself learning how to do things like that. So when, you know, if I have a future client, which is also what this is all about for me, is to be able to get the skills well-rounded enough to use autonomy to actually do a landing page and create a small, you know, business out of this, something like a side thing where I can help people publish and help people produce and do all that kind of stuff. Like kind of like you were saying, like if, especially for the right clients, I would want to do that. And this video and you and me sitting down and doing this is all kind of part of that for me too. Like I'm learning and trying to pass back the information and provide value. But if there's someone like Chris that's like really overwhelmed and busy and needs some help, like that's exactly what I would like to use autonomy to do, is network in that way, Okay, so any other questions in here in this part of this particular video that you wanted to go over? Like now that we have it open here, that anything.
How did you? So that title is already that size, and you just drag it to pop up right there from the left to the right, and then are you able to just copy it and just swap out the text in order to change it for each person?
Sure. Yeah, and so for this particular program, it's going to be unique. So if you're using Premiere, probably something a little bit different. But let's just say, yeah, we're going to drop this in here. You just drag and drop it.
Yeah.
And then you can double click that particular object. And it takes a second, but some more advanced options are going to come up.
Mm.
And then, yeah, I have like full control to. Right.
And drag it to where you need it.
Yep. And you can get that particular, you can, center this. And I had to do that on each one of them. It was a little tedious. But you could start with one, make it perfect, and then duplicate them off.
Right.
To have your 20, and then just change the text. Like I said, I was in kind of a rush with this, and some things were done the wrong way, the long way. Like you said, as long as the end result looks pretty clean, then that's fine, right? Yeah. But the back end is messy on this video.
Yeah.
Which I guess maybe in the end doesn't matter, but for a person like me, I guess like you class like the emerald type, right? Like it does matter. And it's very feng shui, we need a flow. We can't have just stuff sitting around everywhere.
Yeah. And for that podcast job that I had, yeah, it was a mess, and it took me probably like 5 hours on the first one, but then by episode 5 I had my system down, and I was able to knock it out in probably like an hour.
Nice.
But it takes that to figure it out.
Yeah, totally. And something like this, I hope to improve on over time, because I think things like this people want, like a little testimonial reel with some nice music set to it and stuff.
Yeah.
But that's probably the most complicated stuff, like the questions that you already asked, besides like blending the music, and which it sounds like you'd probably be pretty good at.
Yeah, what's your source for stock music?
Okay. For me, now this is.
I'll share mine. You share yours.
Okay. I have a few, but the one I've been using lately, because it's so easy and we have a ton of music, is YouTube. Has a beta studio out. So here's that interface. And under other features, I'm still sharing the screen, right?
Yep.
There's audio library.
Oh.
And then in here, you can say no attribution required. So all the research I've done on that is like, these are pretty much good to go in any way that you want to use them, because there's no attribution required.
Right.
And if it says otherwise, then maybe you have to read about it. But you can
do direct download.
Yep, you just pull these down. I've already saved a ton to my computer because I've been using them in other works, right?
They're decent. That's the problem with like stock music, has been just shitty for fair use.
These are actually pretty good. I mean, they're a little cheesy, and yeah. I actually, in my own videos, I kind of like to make it a little cheesy. That's kind of my goal. I'm not trying to be dead serious, because I have the way I come across is that way anyway. So any kind of goofiness I can mix in.
Yeah. Cool.
All right. Well, what's your source? So
I ended up, I'm paying with it through my digital marketing company, but it's called Storyblock. Go ahead and type that in.
Okay.
And usually for stock footage, for music, I mean, you can pay up to like $200, $500 a month for 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 those, for any subscription models. And this is 30, I want to say $30. Yeah, go down there. So I do. Yeah, I got $39 a month, and I have access to video, audio, and images.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's probably really good if you have all three of those, because that's one issue I have is with images. Like I have a few sites like that are free, right? Pixels,
Yeah.
Pixa, but they're limited. And when you're trying to do a big production, you feel limited, right? Like you're like, I don't have enough of a library here.
And Storyblocks, like, it was kind of cheesy video populating their library, but the new ones are like really, really solid. So I've been super happy with it. And for $40 a month for audio and video, audio is a pretty large library. It's like getting out of the cheese. And
Right.
it has a good search, feature, so you can like find mood, genre, and yeah, I've been pretty pleased with it. So on a side note, if you do need something, you can shoot that over to, like, shoot over what you need, and I can give you some examples of what I can get for you.
Cool. Yeah, that's really helpful, especially like I said, when you're trying to do like a bigger project. And if once I get going further along and have a potential client, I'm going to have to go out and do something like that, like get the professional photo, Shutterstock and all those sites. I'm going to investigate it.
They get expensive quick.
Right. Yeah, that doesn't sound bad, the one you mentioned. So thanks for that. That's great.
Yeah. For video, I mean, it's easy. There's plenty out there that will charge you $200, $300, $500 a month to give you access to video stock. But this is an awesome alternative. Well, sweet. Well, I have my daughter visiting to me, and why don't we break this into 2 different walkthroughs?
Okay.
And we'll leave it at this, and then in the next coming days, we'll have another one for streaming. Any last things you want to show? This is your OBS.
Yeah, no, that's a good place to leave it, because we can go anywhere from here, really. And I think we got a couple of the key things out of the way that will help.
Yeah, cool.
And so I understand that, no problem. I also am kind of worried about what happens if I go like this. And I'm going to have to think about how to share this OBS live and share the screen live without causing a never-ending tunnel.
Like we might want to just do a screen share and do audio through Discord.
There you go.
And skip Zoom.
Yeah, we'll have to structure it a little bit differently. But thank you, man. Thanks for jumping on, because this helps me to get some flight time, talking to somebody and trying to record it at the same time. So. Yeah,
for sure. And yeah, this is a good way to explore, learn, and share it with others. So we're really knocking a lot out. So let's keep this up, and we'll keep the conversation going in the public and the production room.
Sounds good. All right, Joshua. Thanks, man.
All right, Tyler. Take it easy.
Good one.